today with Ted Sarandos, Chief Content Officer for Netflix. Thanks, Ted, for being here. And Peter Guber, my team leader with me in management class.
So we're in a leadership course. How would you describe your leadership style?
The strongest quality that I have always found in people is curiosity. So I try to lead by example by being extremely curious about everything in our business. Not just the things that I touch personally or the things that, that I enjoy, but I really encourage everyone around me to always ask questions and never being afraid to let people know what you don't know. Because I think we learn more by knowing what we don't know than by grandstanding about what we do.
You're known for a lot of firsts, having created this bundled TV model, made multi-season huge bets, having made TV from local to global. How did you know that this would work?
I wasn't sure. I mean, House of Cards was a huge departure for, not just for the TV industry, but for Netflix. We had not done anything really much exclusively even prior to the show. It mostly was the idea of having a lot of content, because a lot of content led to a lot of viewing, and if you paid a lot more to have exclusive, that means you had less content. And so there were a lot of kind of very Silicon Valley-like ways of looking at the world, meaning that all viewing was equal, so get a lot of it. Versus starting to drill in and trying to, determining that some viewing was more valuable than others, and some scarcity of access to the content actually would lead to things like, bigger subscriber base, higher retention, more brand love, and all those things. So when we started getting into it, I said, it just felt like a slightly archaic model in that the way the TV was picked was pretty much the same as it always has been, and the way it was put on television was pretty much always the same. And if we were going to be, entering in that new space, I was worried that we'd be playing into the strength of television instead of our own strength, which was really on demand. So what were the strengths of on demand is giving people as much choice as possible. So every time we ran into a problem, a problem in the decision-making process, we'd say, well, what would people really want to do? And how do we address the most of them by giving them more and giving them more? So it was a bet on being a contrarian, because I think that you can get a lot further by being a contrarian than following the crowd.
Where does that confidence come from?
That credit all belongs to, for me professionally and for everyone at Netflix, to Reed Hastings, our CEO, who has created a culture where you're not afraid to make mistakes. It really encourages you to step out and try something new. And I'm a big believer too. You make a million mistakes, just don't make the same mistake a million times. So by being able to make all the decisions important, but the ones that are life-threatening should be really life-threatening. And I think that we operate in the entertainment industry a lot of times where every decision is life and death. And so we build infrastructure to avoid making hard decisions. And Netflix, we really embrace it. And then when we blow it, we have a quarterly meeting where we bring together all the heads of all the different departments, VPs, directors, board members, and everybody gets up and very candidly talks about the successes and, more importantly, about the failures, and dissect what they think went wrong and what they're going to do differently about them. And being wrong isn't a kiss of death at Netflix. So,
how do you get the constituents that are necessary to execute to buy into the vision? Because when you first adopt that goal, own that goal, it's scary. There's a lot of risk in it. People can lose their jobs, they can lose their careers. How do you get buy-in down the food chain for a vision like that?
So I think you have to really empower people. I think what's unusual at Netflix, almost everyone who works for me, when they sit down to negotiate a deal, they have more buying power than anyone has selling power. And I do that, for a reason. So I look at it and say, well, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to spend $3 billion on content. And if we want to micromanage every buy at every level, nothing's ever going to get done. So what I was going to say is, I give them the decision. We have this now kind of a famous document, this freedom and responsibility document that floated around the internet a couple years ago. And we apply it to really everything. So if we're going to hire somebody to make big decisions, they have to make big decisions and they have to own them. And so in the model of convincing people to take a leap with you, first they have to know that I can close. We can close the deal. And then secondly, that they're going to be safe. We're trying something new, but it's really grounded in logic.
Right.
And here's the logic of it. And then the trick really is finding somebody like a poster child who will come on the ride with you. In our case, it was David Fincher for House of Cards, who just jumped in because at first I think it was he just had a rebellion, and then but really loved the idea of trying something new. Even if it meant he would fail spectacularly, he wanted to do it was in something new. So
you're known to use masses of data. How much of a leader's decision making should be gut, and how much of it should be data?
In the role that I have, it's a balance of art and science. So you can build almost any case for or against anything in Excel, but it's a whole different thing when you have to then sit across the table from somebody and make it work and make it happen. You could build a model that says exactly what a great TV show was going to be, but it's a whole other thing trying to get someone to execute against that model. So there is a lot of serendipity in the art of the creation. So because of that, you become less dependent on the data as a crutch. I just want it to be a tool. I just want it to say, I want to know as much as I can know, but I don't expect to know everything in the data. So a lot of it will come down to, do I believe in this story? Do I believe in this storyteller? Do I believe in the world that they're creating? And then we pull the data together to decide, well, if the vision is on track, this is the size of the world. So we can size the world pretty well, which gives us the ability to predict the size of the audience. And then that gives us the ability to decide how much to put into something or not to do it at all.
But the analytics don't really make the creative choice of the filmmaker or the star, hardly, and the real risk is executing on it, because that's where the uncertainty lies. Just, no one goes to see, hey, let's go down and watch Netflix, here's some data playing. So, yeah.
I asked, someone said, every time you talk through a reason not to do a show all the time, people go, well, it's execution dependent. I said, well, breathing is execution dependent. Everything is execution dependent. So really, all things being equal, is this a show that if it's executed well, there's a big enough audience for it? And then what I have to trust is that we'll have the ability to connect that audience to the show.
You're a creative picker. It's a funny thing, having been in a studio head in 3 studios. I remember when very early in my career, David Picker, who ran United Artists, said, if I made in a book, if I made all the pictures that I passed on and passed on all the pictures I made, it'd probably be the same.
Even, yeah, I read that, yeah.
And I know it was apocryphal, but there's some similarities that you're still in a little bit of a guessing machine in what you're doing, correct?
Correct. Like I said, I think we're a little better informed pickers because we have the data that, so we not only know ratings on one dimension, right? Just how many bodies watch something. We can get really deep inside of it. Remember, this is something we've been developing. I've been at Netflix for 14 years, and we were using this back in our DVD days. If something was out of stock in a video store, you never knew what the demand was. You don't know how many people looked at the shelf, saw it was empty, and walked out. We had the ability to create virtual perfect inventory. Because we'd have, anytime we were supposed to have one, it would register an out of stock at Experience. So we could build it and go back and build the demand models based on if we had the right number every single time. Right. So every buy was better than the last one. Right. And we were able to use that data and really the analytics around that data to decide, did people watch this show because it's got Kevin Spacey, or did they watch this show because it's a political drama, or did they watch this show because of all these different elements?
But when you make the show, it's got to be shown, it's got to be out there.
Yeah.
Is there a moment when you hold your breath too?
Oh, every time. For me, what's fun with it is I as a real lover of movies and a real lover of TV shows, I almost hate the dissection of it, for that you have to do on the business side, watching dailies, reading scripts, and all those things, because it takes you one step removed from it. But when it's all done, my favorite thing to do is actually to sit and watch all 13 episodes back to back and just absorb the whole thing again. And just with complete distance from a budget.
How to.
Yeah, how many takes that cut was, or what that budget overrun on that episode was, or anything that went with it. Just as a piece of art at that point.
Just going back to leadership, and when you're a very busy person, and yet you probably pick some talent that you want to work more closely with, below you, some young talent that you want to mentor. What is it that you look for in those picks?
I think that intellectual curiosity makes or breaks you in business. It's certainly at Netflix, and I imagine in businesses like ours. So it's not enough. You want people who are highly specialized, but nimble, and really curious about everything. Like I said, I have directors and managers who work for us that end every day in someone else's office and just want to know what's happening. How'd you do that? I mean, when you had that thing, how did that work? And I watch it and I can see it and everybody sees it. So it's only in about 10 or 15% of people at that level. And then other people you could bring along. You encourage them to do it and they will and they'll get good at it. But there's a small percentage of people that just have it and they'll do well at whatever they pick. And I'm just pleasantly happy, surprised that they picked us.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for coming to UCLA Anderson.
Thank you.